Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Wednesday to each and every single one of you. How are ya? Terry Hansen here, back with you once again on Traveling with Terry as I go from my home to the office every morning to share some insights with you, business insights for you hustlers, trailblazers, and connectors. Today, let's talk about quarterly rocks inside your company. So years ago, I was walking through a thrift store here in my hometown of Idaho Falls, and there was a book on the shelf that kind of caught my attention, and it was old and pretty tattered, and I pulled it off the shelf, and the title really caught my attention. I found it kind of intriguing and interesting. It was called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I was early in my 20s at that point in time, and I'd never heard of Stephen Covey before, and never really knew anything about the Franklin Covey Institute and all the work that they have done, and I was kind of fascinated. I think I bought it for $3 or something like that, took it home and read through a good chunk of it, and I remember thinking, holy cow, this is the most insightful, inspiring, wonderful stuff I've ever heard. And that book still sits on my bookshelf today, and I reference it all the time. And it's, as you guys well know, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People has been a New York Times bestseller for decades. I think he came out with that in the early 80s or maybe even the 70s or something along like that. And what a revolutionary landmark book that has been over the decades. And one of the analogies or principles that Stephen Covey introduced and talked about in that book is the idea of rocks. I'll share with you a little bit about that and how it applies to some of the goals that you and I are focusing on this quarter right now inside of our companies, and why it's so important to have something called a quarterly rock. And I'll explain what that means here in a minute. So in the book, Stephen Covey talks about this kind of simple illustration, this kind of analogy. And he gets out a bucket, and you guys have probably seen this 100 times. This is not new by any means, but it's where the term quarterly rocks comes from. But Stephen Covey had like a jar, basically. And next to that jar, he had a bucket of kind of large stones, large kind of softball size stones, and then he had several smaller pebbles, and then a bunch of sand or gravel. And the object of the game was to get both the sand or the gravel and the smaller pebbles, as well as the larger stones, into this jar and get everything to fit. Well, attempt number 1 fails. The participant puts all the sand or gravel in first, then puts all the smaller pebbles in that maybe are the size of a marble or something like that, and then last but not least tries to put the bigger stones in there, and it just doesn't fit. And he drew the analogy that each one of the stones represents our top priorities: family, health, relationships. Go on and on and on. Inside of our company, they might represent profitability or revenue or production, or I don't even know, but just some of our top key priorities inside of our company and inside of our lives. Then he drew the analogy that the pebbles themselves, the smaller little stones, if you will, represent the next kinds of projects or the tasks, and then the gravel or the sand represent all the other kind of things, that distractions or other kind of things that pop up that get in our way, etc. And he drew the analogy, obviously, when you try to put all of the sand or gravel into the jar first, deal with all the distractions, all the things that pop up, and the nagging tasks and the interruptions and those kinds of things, and then you work hard on the other projects and tasks that you have, and then finally try to get your big stones, your big rocks in, it just never works. And then he reversed it. He invited the participant to first start with the top priorities, put the big rocks in first. And so the participant puts the big stones, the big rocks into the jar first, then followed by the smaller pebbles, and puts those in. Then last but not least, finally the really fine gravel or the really fine sand. And guess what? They all fit in. They all fit in to this jar. Now, drawing that on that analogy, the principle is pretty straightforward. In our business and in our lives, we have to make our top priorities, our rocks, our big solid rocks, our big priorities, the primary focus of our day. So whatever we are doing, whatever we are focusing on, those become the core focus of what we are talking about and focusing on. So with that is a pretty common sense, pretty familiar analogy. Let's talk about our inside of our companies, our quarterly rocks. Now, yesterday inside of Arcane Marketing, we have what we call a level 10 meeting, a weekly L10, level 10 meeting. And it's an all hands on deck meeting with leadership. And it's considered level 10 because nothing in the company or our schedules is more important than attending and participating in that meeting. That's why it's called a level 10 meeting. So it's an all hands on deck, everybody there, mandatory, be there. And the meeting typically takes about an hour to an hour and a half to focus on really those things, our quarterly rocks, the top priorities, and working on the business instead of working in the business. And yesterday we had an interesting opportunity for all the leadership team to go around and present the results or the outcomes of their first quarter rocks. Every member of the team was working on various really high priority key goals, key projects for the first quarter. And since the first quarter is over, that was our opportunity and chance to basically present to the rest of the team on the status and result of that. And it was really cool to see everybody have a chance to present. You know, we kind of went around the table one by one, and everybody gave an accounting and a report of their stewardship and their responsibility and what they did. And it was really cool to see the progress that was made. Really amazing to see the progress and what had been achieved over the course of the 3 months of the first quarter. And so there's two. It was and it really, everybody walked away from that meeting feeling like we are kicking butt. We are getting stuff done. We are really crossing major milestones, major projects off the list, and really making some sizable progress. The problem that you and I run into as managers and leaders and salespeople and as marketers and entrepreneurs is that we get so caught up in the day-to-day working in the business, so distracted by all the Johnny jump ups and the things that pop up, that sometimes it can derail us from knocking out and accomplishing some of the big priority projects that we have. So one of the calls to action that I want to suggest to you is sitting down with you and your leadership team inside your company and identifying as a company in the next quarter, what are some of the highest priority projects that would really move the needle for you this year in your company. So if your company's goal, for example, is to hit X millions of dollars in revenue, then what are the big projects that will enable and support you as a company to do that? Do you need a brand new CRM system? Do you need a new lead generation source? Do you need to launch a new product line? Do you need to recruit and onboard a brand new agency? I'm just making stuff up. But what are the kind of projects that you need to focus on in order to get to that particular goal there? Now, rocks are important because they're interesting because they have a start and they have a finish. A rock is not something like I want to get in shape this over the next 3 months. Not kind of one of those nebulous or kind of unclear priorities. Usually a rock is a project. It has a clear start and it has a clear finish, and you can clearly define when it's done. But I want to just invite you to think about what are your annual goals this year, and then what are the key projects or priorities that need to be knocked out in order to make that annual goal a reality, right? And form those as basically quarterly projects, big, significant, key quarterly priorities that at least one person is assigned to in the company. And the other kind of key principle there is the company doesn't have a rock that no one owns. One person, at least one person in the company has to claim ownership of that quarterly rock. Somebody's got to have ownership of it, accountability for it. They've got to have it on their to-do list. They've got to be grinding on it day after day, week after week, month after month until it's done. They can get help, they can outsource, and they can get help, but they own that key priority. So the call to action, I think, today is, number one, review your annual goals and priorities, right? Your annual goals and results and outcomes that are most important to you. Number two, identify the key projects and the initiatives that need to be accomplished in order to support that annual goal. Number three is break those down into quarterly priorities. Starting right now, what do you want to focus on this quarter, the second quarter, to knock out that'll really put you in a good place to achieve your annual goal. And then number four is assign one person on your team just to own that rock. Own that rock. We've had it inside of Arcane Marketing. We've had a really great experience working on our quarterly rocks inside of our company, and it's a wonderful practice. And this practice stems from a guy named Gino Wickman and his philosophy of the Entrepreneur's Operating System, or EOS. You guys can Google that. He's only got about 4 different books on the subject, so pick up any one of them, and you'll really gain some great traction. And that's the name of one of his books, is Traction, inside of your company. But this idea of creating and establishing quarterly rocks for your company is a simple, measurable, systematic way to really get traction inside your business. We've seen that inside of Arcane, and totally recommend it to you. So anyway, it's exciting. We're just launching the new quarter, so it's time for a bunch of new quarterly rocks. And so it's a great time right now inside your company to sit down with your leadership team, go through those 4 steps that I identified, and set your quarterly rocks. So when we get back together in 90 days, I want to ask you, how are your quarterly rocks doing? And you should be able to give a solid accounting of your stewardship and responsibility over how those projects have been. So anyway, love you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Keep up the good work. And if you'd like to join us at Arcane Marketing for any of our coaching and mentoring and leadership development programs inside of our sister company, RiseX, reach out to us. You can give us a call. You can visit our website at arcanemarketing.com and join us as a guest, complimentary, and check it out. If you get value from it, if it makes a real difference for you, then heck, man, pay us some money, join with us, join our community, and join on an ongoing basis. So hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Keep up the good work. Good morning, Allison. Hope you're doing well, and look forward to being back with you right back here once again on Traveling with Terry. See you guys. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for watching. Did you know every company out there has what we call digital marketing blind spots? These are simple, hidden opportunities for growing and improving your marketing that most of the time people miss. Go to www.arcanemarketing.com and take advantage of our Rise and Ignite digital marketing analysis. It's 100% free to get fresh new insights and ideas to make what you're already doing that much better in 2021.